Everybody out of this courtroom now!
A courtroom outburst broke out during the arraignment of Matthew Komrowski, the man charged with last week's Cranston murder of his 38-year-old girlfriend Shirley Donnelly and then setting a fire to cover it up.
Preliminary results of the medical examiner indicate the manner of death as a homicide.
Komrowski, who had tight security after being uncooperative during his bail hearing at the Cranston police station over the weekend, agitated the victim's family when he told the judge they would help pay for his bail.
Yeah, I think their family is going to help me.
As Komrowski, who entered no plea on murder and kidnapping charges, was being let out of the courtroom, a man believed to be the victim's friend or relative reached over the rail and lunged at him, causing a ruckus.
Thank you.
Outside the courtroom, family members expressed outrage over Komrowski's callous actions and his criminal past.
It was more than that, his rap sheet. It was arson, domestic, attempted murder, assault. It went on and on and on.
Tell me where the freak's at. Oh, beautiful. Spacious sky.
More fireworks today in court in the sentencing of a convicted rapist. Once again, Luis Harris accused the judge in his case of being unfair.
Your behavior with me, as well as my behavior with you, was completely inappropriate.
Harris also made reference to a stare down between himself and the judge earlier in the hearing. A jury found Harris guilty of impersonating a police officer, kidnapping, and raping a woman on Bayshore Boulevard. During his trial, Harris tried to represent himself, battled the judge frequently, and was even dragged out of court screaming. Today, Judge Chet Tharp said the evidence against Harris was overwhelming.
First thing you said is, "I am no monster." To the contrary, Mr. Harris, you are a monster. You use the guise of law enforcement to take control over your victims so you can have your way with them.
At one point, Harris became emotional when he apologized to his mother. Judge Tharp went on to sentence Harris to life in prison.
One by one, heads down, all in shackles, the three people accused of killing 10-year-old Victoria Martins made their way into the courtroom. Michelle Martins, Jessica Kelly, and Fabian Gonzalez are suspects in one of New Mexico's most horrific crimes. As they spotted friends or family members, there were plenty of tears and sighs. The grandparents of 10-year-old Victoria Martins held hands and wore pins saying, "Forever Victoria." Last August, Victoria was raped, killed, dismembered, then set on fire. Victoria's mother, Michelle, is one of the suspects in this case. At first, it was quiet in the courtroom. Then a woman who blew kisses at our photographer and gestured for Jessica Kelly to smile was kicked out.
I love you. Bye. You guys are pieces of I'm gonna get you, Michelle. Baby, your stove down.
Leave the courtroom now.
After that, Martin's defense attorney Gary Mitchell asked if he could sit next to his client for security reasons. Then, when the three suspects were moving out of the jury box and in front of the judge, Jessica Kelly tumbled over, and bailiffs had to help her get back on her feet. Eventually, she made her way in front of the judge, who decided all three will be tried separately.
There's not a day that I don't think about killing myself.
Two of her children, ages 8 and 7, died in the accident. A third, who was 3, was paralyzed. The man who caused it, then 20-year-old Jorge Solis, was driving drunk. In June 2015, he was going the wrong way with no lights on. He was on I-75 in southwest Atlanta when he plowed into the car with the children.
I cannot tell you today that I am a Christian without flinching in disgust at what God has done to me.
Solis said a few words to the victims' families as he entered guilty pleas to 18 counts.
To the family, from my heart, I'm very sorry for my actions.
The father of Cabrin Osborne describes losing his son, who never made it to his 9th birthday.
I never got to give his birthday presents or nothing. We passed a week and a half for a birthday.
The judge sentenced Solis to 50 years in prison. The sister of Mike Furlow, a man also killed in the accident, says 50 years isn't enough. 3 family members killed as they were taking a trip from Illinois to Florida.
Our families will never be the same again because of what he did in one moment.
You had put cigarettes out on this poor little child. There was evidence of that from the pictures. The bruises, some of the bruises were in the shape of a belt buckle.
Man, I ain't gonna let you, I ain't gonna let you sit here and say no crazy shit about me, man. No, man, because he's saying shit he don't even know, man.
Sir, the testimony showed that you put this child and other child in a shower with ice cold water. Anybody says anything back there, right?
Donta Wright sat in court smiling and nearly laughing as a mother shed tears for her son shot and killed by Wright.
I've lost laughter and love. I no longer have the hope of having grandchildren. I've lost the enjoyment of holidays and birthdays and of everyday life.
Wright addressed the court showing no remorse.
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon. R.I.P. Keon. I love my family.
That's all you got to say?
Yes.
The judge, clearly fed up with the defendant's attitude, stopped the proceedings and asked prosecution to consider taking this case to trial, where Wright would face a stiffer punishment if found guilty by a jury.
But watching you sit there, smile and laugh and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial, and if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there.
This is not the first time the teen has shocked the courtroom. Back in June during a pretrial hearing, he admitted he shot and killed 18-year-old Jordan Klee. It was October 2016. Wright said he and 2 other friends were trying to rob Klee when he shot Klee in the back of the head, killing him. The victim, a senior at Pioneer High School in Ann Arbor, was described as a high-achieving student and football athlete.
This year was supposed to be a year of celebration, of senior pictures with prom and graduation and parties. Instead, it was a nightmare that no parent should ever endure.
Ultimately, Jordan's family decided not to take this case to trial and to move forward with today's sentencing. The defense attorney apologizing on behalf of the 17-year-old.
His smiling was in no way meant as disrespectful either to the family, to the victim, or to this court.
Donta Wright was sentenced to 23 to 50 years for armed robbery, felony firearm, and second-degree murder of 18-year-old Jordan Klee. And in court.
Christopher Dominguez is used to getting breaks, but his luck ran out today. Today, Dominguez stood beside his attorney in Albuquerque's district court, explaining to Judge Cristina Jaramillo why she should let him out of prison.
He'd like a chance to prove that to you by coming back out onto a short term of probation.
This isn't the first time Dominguez has asked for a break.
I know we've heard the words last chance before, but that's what I'm asking for this time, is just one final and truly last chance.
That was back in March. With too many car thefts to count, including trying to steal a bait car, smuggling drugs into rehab, and violating probation, Dominguez could have been facing a decade in prison. But he got 6.5 years.
He was terminated from his recovery after numerous noncompliances.
Dominguez argues he's working on changing his life.
I want to change my old way of living and have a promising future. Thank you for your time, Your Honor. Respectfully, Christopher Dominguez.
Judge Jaramillo told Dominguez he already caught a break when she gave him 6.5 years, and she wasn't budging today.
Given a deal, I think 6.5 years for this many cases is a great deal, and that's the benefits you're getting out of it. So take advantage of it. Good luck. Thank you.
Dominguez was less than thrilled.
An emotional, albeit angry Pamela Phillips addressing her ex-husband, murdered Tucson businessman Gary Triano's surviving family for the very first time in court.
I just want everybody to know that I am innocent. I am innocent. I am innocent, okay? And I'm really, really, This is hard. It's so hard for me. It's a nightmare. This is a nightmare. Okay, what's happened's a nightmare. And Gary was my husband. Okay? Gary was my husband, and he was the father of my children. And I am innocent. And I want everybody to know that. This is not a travesty, and it's a nightmare for me. Okay? And I don't understand how this can even happen, right? But I want you all to know that I am innocent.
The plea moments before hearing she'll spend the rest of her life in prison. The sentencing comes 1 month after jurors convicted Phillips of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, guilty of hiring a hitman to kill her ex-husband, Gary Triano, back in 1996. A separate jury convicted hitman Ronald Young in 2010. Triano's children calling out their former stepmother in court.
His life was taken as the result of greed, hate, and malice.
Phillips' attorneys arguing her innocence until the end.
She doesn't have remorse because she didn't do this. And it's not just a tragedy for my client. It's not just a tragedy for Ronald Young. It's not just a tragedy for the people that care about them. It's a tragedy for the victims in this case because the real perpetrators aren't going to be brought to justice.
I got a life, man. I got a life sentence.
The ruling wasn't just based on this August attack on Waco store owner Martha Jane Ezar. Tony Wayne Swinney has been in and out of prison in past years for felonies.
He had a chance to come back into society and be productive, and he didn't do it. And the crimes got more violent as he committed them.
Prosecutors also called victims of crimes that Swinney has confessed to but hasn't been prosecuted for yet, like this assault and robbery at a McDonald's in Grand Prairie last July. As the life sentence was announced, there were cheers and tears from Ezar's family before they had one last chance to tell him face-to-face about the pain they say he caused Martha, her grandchildren who witnessed the crime, and the entire family.
I'm glad that he got life. I don't think it's good enough for him. I think he's a coward. I asked him several times to look at me when I was speaking to him. He didn't want to look at me. At one point he laughed. Like I told him, I hope he has the nightmares in his head that our whole family's been through.
The judge's last words to Swinney, "I wish I could give you more," a sentiment shared by Ezar's family.
His eyes are the keyhole to his soul, and there was no remorse there.
In Waco, Matt Gebhardt, NBC 6 News.
I'm going to commit you to the Department of Corrections, Ms. Jackson, for the middle term of 6 years for the reasons I've stated.
Darla Jackson burst into sobs as the judge hands down her sentence. Time she will serve for the voluntary manslaughter of U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer Zacharias Bube. Prosecutors argued Jackson ran over Bube in a fit of road rage on a South Bay freeway in May of 2015. Deputy District Attorney Laura Evans said Jackson drove 93+ miles an hour that day, chasing Bube across 4 lanes of highway. When she ran into Bube, she was barely 5 feet behind him, going 80 miles an hour, pushing Bube some 300 feet before he finally went down.
And he's gone. And I miss him.
As the Bube family asked for the maximum sentence, they shared their pain and loss and said it could have all been avoided.
She had every opportunity to change her mind and not chase my brother across 2 freeways.
Pretty hard to understand why someone would get that angry. We still can't get our head around it, Your Honor.
Jackson apologized to the Bube family, calling her actions that day a mistake.
I know a lot of awful things were said about me that made a lot of you believe that I did this on purpose. I'm not that person.
The judge said there was not enough evidence to prove that the crime was intentional, but believed Jackson still deserved time in prison.
You stab a firefighter in the shoulder, not kill him, just stab him, and you get 9 years in prison. But you run over a member of the military on a motorcycle and you get 6 years. Justice to me was not served.